Welcome to This Week in Morgan County. I'm your host, Russell Mokhiber. Our guest this week is Elaine Parke. She's the executive director of 12, what's the name of the group?
12 Habits for Wonderful People.
12 Habits for Wonderful People. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Russell. Pleasure to be here.
What is 12 Habits for Wonderful People?
It is a multimedia campaign where we have literally branded each of the months of the year into one of 12 habit building mottos, sort of. So for a whole month, everyone in the Warm Springs Middle School, where we are focused, and out in the 65 ambassadors that are merchants, social agencies, everyone is focused on the same idea. That's a positive, uplifting idea that helps you lead a better life for the whole month. Like this month is resolve conflicts, and the color is peaceful white. So you'll see kids at the school wearing white. Kids read from my book on morning announcements. There are flyers all over the school. We had dinner Friday night at the Country Inn, and you walk in and you see a poster that says resolve conflicts because the Country Inn is one of our ambassadors.
Do you contract with the schools? Do you have a contract with the schools to do work in the schools?
We have an arrangement with the schools.
And what is the arrangement?
The arrangement is that we deliver the materials, and then the school is responsible for putting up all the posters, handing out all the information to the kids. They read from my book on morning announcements and the afternoon announcements. And then there's an idea book. Actually, every month has an idea book that's got over 100 pages in it, where a teacher can use vocabulary that's about resolving conflicts, or a kid can write an essay about resolving conflicts, or activities. But the idea is that the negative influences in the world are overwhelming, but the positive things are so fragmented. Nothing gets any traction. And the more information there is, the harder it is for an individual to know what to do. I had a kid in an inner city school in Pittsburgh stand up and say, "Nobody ever told me how to be." And this is just a simple 12-month habit-building protocol to help remind both kids and families and give them an idea and a reminder, like a reminder system of this is how to be, little things.
And the 12 habits, I'm going to read them. So
okay, go ahead.
And these are by month.
January. And there's sort of
Yes.
I had the inspiration. I'm a former advertising executive, and I had the idea that we could broaden our reach with kids by engaging advertising principles and branding. So I had the idea that nobody's ever made the months a brand for something. But then a community of people in Somerset, Pennsylvania spent a whole year thinking about, okay, January, what should we do for January? What should be the thought for February? So the 12 habit building mottos that you have there were agreed upon and very carefully thought through by a lot of people in a small town.
All right, so that our listeners and observers understand the 12 habits, we'll just read them. So January is lend a hand, learn CPR and first aid.
Well, that's the health. Why don't you just forget the health focuses, because that might mix you up.
Okay, so lend a hand. February is you count. March, this month, is resolve conflicts. April is take care of our environment. May is be grateful. June is be adventurous. July is become involved. I want to get into that a little bit. August is what do you value? August is a question. September is do your best. October is be patient and listen. November is be positive and smile, something I have a hard time with. And December is celebrate life.
Exactly, rather than going to the shopping malls, by the way. That's the idea, to focus the community on the non-monetary aspects of December.
What made you you've written a book on this,
yes.
You're campaigning on it in the schools and in the community in Morgan County. What made you decide to do this?
Here
work?
Or in the beginning?
In the beginning.
I was a very badly abused and neglected child. So of course I wanted to be treated better. And I grew up, well, then when I was 11, I was introduced to volunteering by a neighbor, took me to the Red Cross. And all of a sudden, for the first time, someone said nice things to me, and I felt valued. So I will always be grateful to volunteer, and I've always volunteered since, no matter what I was doing professionally. But I believe that's what transformed my life from who knows what I would have been otherwise into being able to take what might be a negative for other kids out there and turn it into a life passion, to encourage more people to treat one another better in the small ways, the moments, the 1,440 minutes we each have every day.
And this is basically about civility.
Civility, you bet.
Being decent to other
Exactly.
human beings.
The little things, yes.
And so cynics would say, isn't that the job of parents and family? Shouldn't parents and family be instilling civility into their children?
Absolutely. But there is a community member who doesn't come to the table in our community. And that community member is media. And that community member is severely interfering with the capacity of even good parents to get through to their kids.
Okay, this is interesting. So now what do you mean by that? How is media interfering with family?
Media is teaching kids that buying stuff is more important than being kind to another person. Media is teaching them that the more publicized the brand name is, the more they've got to bug their parent to buy it for them. Kids.
But that's not just media, that's society, that's the corporate system.
The corporate system, but it comes into a community through the media.
Now, you handed me, before we did the interview,
Yes.
a little biography of yourself.
Yes.
You come from corporate America. You were a spokesperson for some very large corporations.
Absolutely. Kids, I was a vice president of marketing for a big cosmetic company, and my friends used to say, what's an altruist like you doing selling hairspray? Because they knew that after work, once or twice a week, I'd be heading off to the inner city of Cleveland and working with children.
So, as I understand you now, are you saying that you were part of the problem when you were advertising to young children to buy this and buy that?
I mean, isn't that where great ideas come from? Where a person like me feels that, exactly what you just said, and says, I'm feeding my family with my income, but this is wrong. There's another way to do this. And also when I would go into the inner city, I would be successful perhaps, but I could never reach enough. But in my corporate life, with a staff of 12 people, I'd influence a couple of million people. So it's like 12 people, a couple of million, 1-to-1, maybe I'm successful, with one person when I volunteer. Why not use my corporate, my abilities to multiply a message with media and use it for good? And so that's what this is.
How long have you been working in Morgan County?
This has been active in Morgan County almost 2 years.
And what impact are you having?
It's just amazing. We did the first study, we're doing the second one now, of the middle school children. And in about 6 months of exposure, we did it in end of February last year, they started it in September. 62% of the kids reported they were seeing the messages all over the community. It made them feel more cared about. It made them feel more part of the community. It made them feel motivated to want to do better. It made them want to help out more at home, take care of their little sister, help their grandmother, study more often. I mean, these are written, this is documented. These are written on the surveys that we have. And the surveys aren't general. The surveys are very specifically asking the students, how do you like, how is this program affecting you?
One big issue in the schools is health.
Yes.
And obesity, and this is part of the messaging that
Exactly.
kids get on junk food and so
yes.
forth. Is there anything, there's nothing in the 12 habits. You would think that one of the habits would be take care of yourself.
Okay, I didn't want you to read it along with, if you read that again, read the second line of each one of those. In January,
It's lend a hand. That's the first line. The second is learn CPR and first aid.
read the second line of the next one.
In February, the habit is you count.
So,
Focus on a drug-free you.
exactly. So we have the health component, and each school gets a health poster and what we call a social message poster. For instance, in September, it's do your best, and the focus
Good
is
nutrition
on good.
fuels good health.
Ta-da!
There it is, okay.
There you are.
All right, so I wasn't reading. Well, you told me don't read the second line.
I thought it would be confusing.
Okay.
To,
Now
you know,
that's okay. So there, the second line is sending a more specific message.
a specific health message. The first line is a social behavior message. The second line is a health behavior message. But they're very carefully designed to work together.
Who funds 12 Habits for Wonderful People? Where's your income from?
Well, over the years that we were in Pennsylvania, we probably I raised close to $5 million in funding. The Benedum Foundation was one of our funders.
What's it called?
Benedum.
Benedum.
Benedum funds Western Pennsylvania and I think most of West Virginia as well. Since we've come here, I actually brought the balance of the money remaining here, and there's also a private trust that funds us. But if you saw our financials, in total, it costs less than $1,000 a month to produce over 50,000 pieces of material that went out last year, and we have close to $140,000 in volunteer time.
Now, this is a volunteer effort. The school's not paying the nonprofit at all.
Neither Morgan County nor any taxpayer in West Virginia has paid 1 penny for this.
And this would be a model program in West Virginia. It's not being done anywhere else. It's being done here in Morgan County.
Yes.
Okay. But you hope to expand it.
Yes, that's why some of our documents say Wonderful People, West Virginia. I mean, really, we changed the name to 12 Habits for Wonderful People, or I did. I wrote what's called a concept paper. That's when you shift something, for a new purpose. So my new purpose was no longer Pennsylvania and Rwanda. We ought to get to that. This is also being done in the country of Rwanda, sponsored by Rotary. But we have our wild and wonderful West Virginia, but that refers to our scenery. So I thought, what better way to make West Virginians feel uplifted and better about themselves than to call them wonderful people. So that's why we changed the name to 12 Habits for Wonderful People here in West Virginia, Morgan County.
Let's learn a little bit about Elaine Parke. Give us a little bit of your history. We know a little bit just from our conversation that you came through the corporate world, but where were you born and raised, and give us your life trajectory.
Well, I was born and raised in Ohio. I was born in Ohio, raised in upstate New York, in Schenectady, actually. I am a ADHD. Actually, I'm in a PASS program. I'm a PASS volunteer now, in addition to my own program at the school. And
What's a PASS volunteer?
I don't know what that stands for, but it's a person who chooses to go into the schools once a week and work with a student who has been identified by the faculty as could use an adult friend and some extra help. So I do that. And this is getting me back to what I used to do before I started this, and I miss it. I'm really loving my relationship with my past student. And she's a lovely girl, and we're texting, and I'm hoping that I'll have a positive influence in her life. I've just started working with her. But I was raised in upstate New York. I went to undergraduate at Northwestern University in marketing and journalism, and I was a talented writer. So I moved up the corporate marketing chain, through copywriting, and then once I got my MBA, I was able to move, my master's in business, I was able to move up into the top corporate circles. But all the while, I was volunteering with kids whenever I could, even when my own children were young.
Describe some of your corporate work. What did you do?
I was, most of my work was either with marketing consulting companies. I did a lot of direct mail. I actually was involved with a company in Chicago that was one of the original developers of the whole credit card system. Now I'm giving away my age. And credit and fulfillment, I mean, no, this had not been done up to that time. Then I went to work for Bell and Howell and did actually direct marketing of movie cameras for Bell and Howell. Then, later I was with some private companies. There's what's known as you can either work for an ad agency or a corporation can have an in-house agency. So I had an in-house agency. We would use an outside agency for a big fancy campaign, but for the most part, I had 6 or 8 artists, PR people, copywriters who worked for me, and we produced all the marketing materials. Earlier you were asking me how often I went into the schools, and I said, you already don't understand what we do. And that's because, okay, let's pick somebody kind of old, but let's say Stephen Covey, 12 Habits, or who's somebody more current. I can't think of an author, but you know who the guy is or the woman is who's done the thing. But nobody knows who wrote Teach the World to Sing in Perfect Harmony for Coca-Cola. And when I was in the middle school last year, they had a assembly the beginning of every month, a whole school rally. The kids came wearing the color. The principal got down there and told the kids, this month we're going to do your best, or whatever it is. And I attended every single one of those assemblies, and not one student in the school even knew who I was. Because when you get your message across without getting you or your ego into it, the message comes across pure. And kids are used to getting their message through media. When they see it in the school, they hear it in the morning announcement, they see it on the halls, the teachers are talking about it. They go around the town and they say, look, Food Lion is telling me the same thing. We just met last week with a wonderful man, Chris Reisinger, who should be given a lot of credit in this town. He's the unit director for the Boys and Girls Club here. And he said, I like this because he said it's more modern than other ways of helping kids be better people. He said, because it's in short bursts of information. Lend a hand, do your best, be appreciative. Quick and easy. We're not going to get through the kids with a 45-minute class on being positive or something. It's just, and there's research beginning to back that up.
You mentioned, all right, so you did the corporate world. When did you start doing this kind of volunteering?
I moved into Pennsylvania as director of marketing for Hidden Valley Resort up in the Laurel Highlands. And that's kind of when I had the idea. And I mentioned it to the owner of the resort who liked it. And he called together a group of people in Somerset. And we had a meeting and they liked it and said, we'll try it here. And 18 months later, 37% of the people said they'd altered their behavior at least once. 72% of the people said they felt more warmth and caring in the community, and we had been designated a social invention by the London Institute of Social Inventions.
What took you to Rwanda?
Rotary. My husband passed away, and I went through a lufting period. I've been talking to some of my staff people about sailing. You come about, and your sail kind of luffs a little. And then I went into Pittsburgh and was trying to get some support. And ultimately, our very first funder, well, it was a community program, but the Vice President of Community Affairs of Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield had a friend who had just taken over as principal of the worst school in the whole state of Pennsylvania. And I'd been trying to get them to fund me developing my idea. So this vice president of Highmark called me in and said, Elaine, you've been telling me, you can improve the population of a school. He said, I want you to go home, do it, tell me how much it's going to cost, and go do it in Aliquippa Middle School. And 2 years later, that school won the Violence-Free Youth Award. The kids were at then Governor Ridge's mansion receiving the Violence-Free Youth Award of $10,000. And it grew from there all across Western Pennsylvania. But Rotary heard about it, the Pittsburgh Rotary. And so they started sponsoring schools in inner city Pittsburgh. Even though a lot of them live in suburbs, they choose to have their Rotary in the center of town. So they were sponsoring it, and then I was selected as an innovative project to go to the Rotary International Conference in Chicago. And there some Rotarians from Rwanda saw it. They were working, Rwanda, I'm so proud of Rwanda. The world could learn a lot from Rwanda and what Rwanda's done since the genocide. But they wanted to, this program had color. It uses color as symbols for behavior. It was a simple, easy protocol. And so they paid for me. I went to Rwanda for 3 weeks. I trained all the headmasters of all the schools in Rwanda. And it's still active today in the ministry. But I just heard from them recently. They've started a new national campaign, citizenship. It's called Unango. I have to get, some of the Kinyarwandan words I can't remember exactly. And they're moving this model into their national model in Rwanda. And they want me back, so I got to get somebody to send me back.
So you've been around the world. What brought you live now in Berkeley Springs. What brought you here?
I just like it here. When I was working for Hidden Valley, we were owned by a developer down near Washington, so I had to go through here once a month with my associates. And I'd drive down the starting little street, and I'd see this cute little park, and I'd think, what a cute little place. And I'm not a Florida person. There's too many old people in Florida. So I just loved it. I just liked it here. And then I came back, and then I got a little tiny cottage where I came here in the winter. And 3 years ago, I moved here permanently. So I'm a mountain mama. I love it. I like it that John Denver says, you're not born here, you belong here. So I belong here.
Now, why the middle school? Why not the high school, for example?
Because the middle school is the toughest. The middle school is where, change of life is going on among kids. And so therefore, middle schools, and also there are fewer programs for middle schools. Who wants to tackle it? There are lots of programs for elementary, lots of fancy things for high school. But really, there are fewer programs to help middle schoolers have self-control and better manage themselves and do better. So, besides, that's what Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield told me they'd pay me for. So,
for the middle school.
For the middle school, yeah.
And are they funding this program now?
Not now, but we are planning on approaching Highmark in West Virginia. So, hey, somebody from Highmark in West Virginia, get ready to get a call from us.
What if like one of the 12 habits was civic engagement on the healthcare system, and they wanted to get rid of all the private health insurance companies, including Highmark, as most countries do?
What if?
Yeah. In other words, what if one of your 12 actions or 12 habits was civic engagement on healthcare?
Yes.
And it conflicted with the funder. The funder makes money selling private health insurance.
Well, that's why these 12 habits are about non-issue. There's nothing you can't actually. Where I'm playing,
it's apolitical.
Yes, I'm planning.
So is that deliberate not to have civic engagement?
Exactly.
So you said we're not going to have the kids engaged civically because that would get them into trouble with the funder?
I think engaged civically and being activists are two different things.
No, being an active citizen is what I'm saying.
But being an active citizen and speaking, that's, if you count, then you're more apt to stand up and say what you think about an issue.
Right, but let's just talk, for example, for a second about healthcare.
Okay.
Let's say you want to educate the kids about the healthcare system.
Right.
And the private insurance companies ripping off consumers and patients.
That would be somebody else's job, because the purpose of this is absolutely, I call it the phenomenon of us and them, all right? I believe the biggest enemy on our planet is the phenomenon of us and them, because nobody wants to be them.
What do you mean by us and them?
It means there's a us and a them to almost everything.
And it shouldn't be that way.
Well, no,
It
it's
should
not
be
that.
we are the world, or what?
It's just that the us and them should be working together to figure out what we is. Does that matter? Oh, well, I missed a big part of my history.
Yeah.
I was
And we have 1 minute left.
I was very active in the peace movement. And there were a lot of fractionist division in all the different parts of the peace movement. I was a part of a play that traveled all over the Northeast called Alice in Blunderland. It was a musical allegory on the nuclear age. And really, that's where I learned that peace is not well served with an angry fist. And that's why what I do today is an outgrowth of my time as a peace activist.
Well, thank you very much for your work. And if people wanted more information, is there a website for this?
Yes, www.wonderfulpeople.net. Not hard.
Thank you, Elaine Parke. And thank you
you,
for
Russell.
watching This Week in Morgan County.